Hi guys, welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel, and today's video is really about power struggles in our romantic adult relationships. And when primarily do power struggles present themselves is usually when we're in the midst of conflict. So when I say power struggles, I'm not talking about domestic violence and that power and control model. What I'm really talking about is, when we're in the midst of conflict, we try to persuade our partner to take our side, and we really get caught up in this like conflict and kind of like butting heads, or we want to be right. And when we get into that stance of wanting to be right or we want to win, that's usually we're in this power struggle that eventually becomes detrimental in our relationships. So I wanted to just go through some what to do when we're in the midst of a power struggle that will help you guys. And first, I just want to acknowledge there's a book called Unplugging Power Struggles by Dr. Jan Falwell, and she actually wrote that for parents and children. And if you are watching this and you have kids between the ages of 2 and 10, I highly recommend that book. It's a fabulous book. But when I was reading that book, because I do have children, and when I was reading that book, I really started thinking about, this could really, some of these principles could also apply in our adult relationships, or in our romantic relationships. So I just want to kind of go through what they are and how to translate them into our relationship. Okay, guys? And again, if you have kids, it's a fabulous book. If you don't have kids, but you do have conflict in your relationship, keep watching. So here's the thing. When there's a power struggle, her three options are: when there's a power struggle, we let go, we hold on, or we negotiate and compromise. And so, what's that mean in our adult relationships? So in the midst of a power struggle, when we're in conflict, if we start to dig our heels into our position, and if we start to get to the spot where we want to be right, or we're in fight or flight and we're saying things that are hurtful or harmful to the relationship, when we're flooded with our emotions, that we're just in this fight or flight, when we stay in the fight and we go into negative, that is when it can really become detrimental to our relationship. Dr. John Gottman says in relationships, conflict is part of it. If you don't have a relationship without conflict, it's really the sign of a healthy relationship is learning how to manage your conflict. So it's okay if you have some conflict, but what's not okay is if, you want to be right all the time, you're in it to win it. If you use the 4 horsemen: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, or stonewalling, you avoid conflict, or when there's a lot of negativity in the relationship and you just stay in that negative place where you're putting your partner down a lot, or you're becoming overly critical, or you stay in the negative story. So, with these 3 options, how do these 3 options, hold on, let go, negotiate, and compromise, how can these help with managing conflict? So in our romantic relationships, in our relationship, when we're in the midst of conflict, what's holding on mean, what's letting go mean, and what's negotiating and compromising? Well, in my opinion, negotiating and compromising is pretty self-explanatory. You get to a point where you're in kind of like a standstill. So a healthy way is to say, okay, we've taken a break, we've cooled off, and now it's time to listen to understand. It's time to talk about how we both see it. It's time to understand how my partner sees it, and what does my partner need, as well as me communicating what I would like my partner to hear, and also what do I need, a positive need. And then, once we've gotten through that talk, then we're into, depending on what's going on, we're into compromise discussion. But this is when we start to negotiate and compromise. This is when we start to talk through things. This is when we are giving each other the benefit of the doubt. This is when we are listening to understand. And it's when we're working together as a team. Okay? So this is negotiating and compromising. And I have done a couple of videos on compromising too. I'll put the links in the bio or in the description. So what is holding on? Holding on is typically when we're stuck in a perpetual issue and we're holding on to a belief or value system that we're not willing to compromise on. So again, going back to Dr. Gottman, Dr. Gottman talks about when conflict arises in a relationship, 69% of the time it's perpetual and 31% it's solvable. So perpetual problems are usually attached to a belief or value system that we are just not willing to compromise on. And oftentimes we feel like, or we fear that our partner's trying to get us to compromise on a strong belief that we just are not going to. And so we hold on, we stay in it. And the first step in talking through a perpetual issue is, one, to understand you're not going to compromise on a belief or value, but two, it's what, when we're stuck in a perpetual problem, what do I need to understand about what my partner is saying? And how can we learn how to talk through this issue in a very different way? So, Gottman's research points out that with a perpetual problem, it's going to be something that comes up throughout the history of your relationship over and over again. And the best way to approach these perpetual issues is to learn how to dialogue or to talk through them in a very different way. So we're not, digging our heels in and just staying stuck in, I'm right. But most importantly, we're saying, okay, let's hear what we're both saying first. Let's identify what maybe this perpetual problem is and what is the belief and value system that we're holding on to. And let's talk through that. Let's communicate it. So, again, holding on is we hold on to our belief and value system, but I also want you guys to know you've got to communicate what that is. You've got to talk through, like, this is what's going on for me, this is how I'm feeling, and this is the bigger picture for me. Okay? And then once we do that, then we can talk about some different strategies on how to create a plan together when these perpetual problems come up, and how to talk through them differently. And then the last option is letting go. And oftentimes when we let go, that doesn't mean that we're letting go of the fight and that we're, going to conflict avoid and we're going to, quietly talk badly about our partner or think negative thoughts, or we're going to do those little underhanded, negative comments or little things that we try to get our partner upset. I don't want you to do any of that, because any of that is detrimental to your relationship. Criticism, the little underhanded, oh, my partner's just not going to listen. All of that is leading to disconnect, more conflict, and really this growing sense of contempt in your relationship. So when I say let go, letting go is like, in this moment of conflict, I'm going to step back. Letting go in our relationships, in our adult relationships, is in this moment, instead of holding on to instead of continuing to fight, I'm going to step back and I'm going to take a deep breath. This is when I'm going to call a break, and I'm going to cool off and cool down and really think about, what is it that I'm really trying to communicate here? What's important to me? And how can I do that in a way that doesn't amp me up to the point where I'm flooded again. Okay, so it's not necessarily about your partner, it's about you. So again, it's letting go is, in this moment, I need to step back from the conflict. I need to cool off and cool down. I need to take a break and really kind of think about, in the cool down, getting my heart rate to come back down. And then in my, and then the other part of that cool down is really thinking about what's important here. What do I need to communicate when I come back to the table to talk through with my partner? Now, that is all wrapped up in how to develop a plan to take a break in your relationship when you're in the midst of conflict. So taking a break is like taking a time out or pausing and stepping away to come back. Now, I did a whole video on this too, and I'll also post a link to that in the comment section. But taking a break, guys, remember, is actually a really good thing in your relationship. When you've become so flooded with emotions that you're in fight or flight, remember, you're not listening. you kind of have tunnel vision and you're in that state of freeze, or I'm going to fight here, I'm going to totally run away. And if you stay there, you are saying things that are hurtful or harmful to the relationship. So letting go is, I'm implementing the break. I'm taking a pause to save to help protect our relationship. And again, when we're in a power struggle, if we stay in a power struggle, if we stay in conflict and we don't learn how to manage it, it does become detrimental to our relationship. But if we implement some of these strategies on how to manage our conflict in healthy ways, we're protecting our relationship. So, what are some of these strategies? As I've said, it's looking at how to develop a plan to take a break when you're in the midst of a heated argument and it's really starting to turn to a point where you're flooded and you're at this point of maybe saying things that are hurtful or harmful. Take a timeout. Develop a plan to say, in the timeout, this is the commitment that we're making to one another. This is how long the break is going to be, and then we're going to come back to the table. And again, that's letting go. In the midst of conflict, I'm going to let go, cool off and calm down, and then come back to the relationship. Holding on is that understanding that you hold on to a belief or value that you're not willing to compromise. And you also, once you've cooled off, you have to clearly communicate what that value system is that's being called into question, and what your partner, what about this value system is important to you. So you're communicating that, and you and your partner are learning how to dialogue and talk through these perpetual problems very differently instead of just doing this. All right? Negotiate and compromise is getting to a place where you both understand each person's position on how they see the conflict, and you're willing to talk about what compromise looks like. And remember, compromise is both of you getting and getting. It's not one person is 100% happy and the other person isn't. That's not compromise. Compromise is that you both are giving and taking a little bit. And again, all of this, having this plan, is really a good way that you are learning how to, one, manage your conflict in your relationship, and two, also in some covert ways, kind of saying you value the relationship. You value the relationship enough to understand that when conflict arises, you're putting a plan together, you're putting a plan in place to help you guys work through it and manage it, instead of just staying in conflict. And either when you're together or apart, you allow negativity in. When you develop a plan, instead of allowing negativity in, you let go of it, you release it, and you are helping your relationship. So positivity in a relationship is kindness, compassion, empathy, affection, appreciation, admiration, humor, playfulness. According to Dr. Gottman, he calls that creating a relationship climate of those things. And remembering in those, so even in the midst of conflict, how are we still kind of understanding that we're in this together, and maybe we're choosing kindness instead of negative thoughts or negative thinking or lack of respect. Mutual respect is another thing that's really important in the relationship. And when you look at how to work through these conflicts or these power struggles in your relationship, you're also communicating mutual respect to one another. Okay, guys, so that is it for today. Remember, hold on, let go, negotiate and compromise, and creating a plan of action on when conflict arises. How are you best learning how to manage it and show each other mutual respect in your relationship? All right, that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for weekly updates all about relationships. Have a great day.